Dillon Gabriel just handed Shedeur Sanders a victory, without Shedeur even lifting a finger. We're competitors, not entertainers. One slow-motion PR faceplant that somehow managed to insult an entire generation of athletes, and especially one, Shedeur Sanders. Now, Dillon didn't drop Shedeur's name directly, but come on, this wasn't subtle. Everyone and their uncle knew exactly who he was talking about. The sideline swagger, the post-game Rolex flashes, the NIL deals. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. The hundreds of headlines that revolve around Sanders not just as a quarterback, but as a full-blown celebrity athlete. And the second that clip aired, Twitter exploded. Fans went feral. Commentators squinted at their screens like, wait, did he just... And the meme machine roared to life, because whether Gabriel meant it as a dig or just an honest opinion, it landed like a sucker punch on national television. And the court of public opinion, it's already ruled. Let's break this down. The insult itself wasn't even that spicy. It wasn't a full-on rant. It didn't include profanity or name-calling, or anything explicitly disrespectful. That's what makes it so insidious. It was coded. It was slippery. It was dipped in ego and served cold. And that's why it stung. Because Gabriel wasn't just saying, I compete. He was implying that Shedeur and anyone like him doesn't, that all the flash, all the media buzz, all the branding somehow makes you less a serious athlete. And you already know that take has aged like milk in the desert. Because if there's one thing Shedeur Sanders has proven, it's that you can be both. You can light up the scoreboard and sell out merch. You can lead your team on the field and be the face of a movement off of it. What Dillon Gabriel did in that moment wasn't just shade, it was a declaration. An attempt to draw a line between the real ones and the showboats. And guess what? Nobody liked that. Because the reality? That line doesn't exist anymore. This is 2025. Athletes are brands. Swagger is part of the strategy. And calling someone an entertainer, as if that's a bad thing, that's not just tone deaf. It's borderline career suicide. And speaking of careers, Gabriel's quote didn't just blow up on social media. It got noticed by analysts, scouts, and insiders. And not in a look at this bold leadership way. More like a, yikes, this guy might not be built for the spotlight kind of way. You want to play in the NFL? Cool. Step 1, be media savvy. Step 2, don't ignite unnecessary drama with fan-favorite players who have the media wrapped around their pinky finger. But that's exactly what Gabriel did. He picked a fight with the wrong dude at the worst possible time. Because Shedeur knows the power of perception. He's not out here posting rants. He's not subtweeting. He's not engaging at all. His silence is doing more damage than a million think pieces ever could. And the irony? It's perfect. Dillon says he's not an entertainer. Meanwhile, he becomes a main character in the biggest viral sports drama of the month. And Shedeur? Still winning. Still thriving. Still unbothered. That's dominance. But let's go back to that phrase. We're competitors, not entertainers. There's something so loaded about it, as if being entertaining is a liability, as if style can't exist with substance, as if Shedeur Sanders, who's led comeback wins, taken brutal hits, and still delivered under pressure, isn't a competitor because he also knows how to market himself. It's the oldest narrative in sports. The hard-working, humble athlete versus the flashy look-at-me star. But guess what? That story's tired. And wrong. This generation of athletes, they've rewritten the script. They know that visibility is power. Nil deals, personal branding, social presence. It's not ego, it's survival. And the ones who don't get that, they get left behind. Now let's talk fallout. Because the backlash? Immediate and relentless. Fans resurfaced every lukewarm Gabriel stat line they could find. Old losses, missed throws, weird interviews. One tweet read, "Bro said he's not an entertainer," and then gave us a comedy special disguised as a press conference. Another user simply posted, A screenshot of Gabriel's quote plus Shedeur's Rolex equals ratioed into oblivion. But this wasn't just about dragging Dillon for laughs. The bigger issue was what it revealed about how he sees a game, and how out of step that mindset might be in today's environment. Because if you're not adjusting with the times, you're a liability. And here's the kicker, this wasn't even necessary. Gabriel could have used that moment to show confidence, grace, or even unity. He could have said, "There's a lot of noise out there, but I respect anyone out there grinding to win games." Boom. Clean. Safe. No drama. But instead, he chose arrogance over awareness, pride over poise. And now he's not being talked about for his arm strength or leadership. He's being talked about for a soundbite. And in sports, that's fatal, because your words don't disappear. Especially not in the age of memes, remixes, and internet investigators who can dig up every awkward interview you've ever done. The internet doesn't forget, and it sure as hell doesn't forgive unless you own it fast. So far, no apology, no clarification, just awkward silence. And that silence, it's not strategic like Shedeur's. It's damning, because when you leave a media mess and you go quiet, the audience fills in the blanks for you. And let's just say the story they're telling, not flattering. Even analysts are starting to raise eyebrows. Can Gabriel lead a team? Will he crack under the pressure of the spotlight? Is he too caught up in the wrong narratives? Can he coexist in a locker room filled with personalities who've already mastered the new playbook of sports and media? These are the kinds of questions that derail momentum. And Gabriel? He's now fighting an uphill battle, not just on the field, but in every interview, every appearance, every snap where the crowd might be thinking, "Oh, that's the guy who dissed Shedeur." Like it or not, that quote is now part of his brand, and not in a good way. Meanwhile, Shedeur's brand? Stronger than ever, undefeated in the public eye, quiet, focused, the image of cool confidence while the world spirals around him. He didn't have to say a word, because everyone else said it for him. And that's the art of modern sports stardom. It's not just about touchdowns and stats. It's about narrative control. It's about knowing when to talk and when to let silence slap harder than words. So what happens next? If Gabriel wants to fix this, he's got work to do. Serious work. This isn't a waited-out situation. This is a call your PR team, prep a clean statement, give a respectful interview, and rebuild your image brick by brick situation. And if he doesn't, well, let's just say there are a lot of quarterbacks hungry for attention who know how to compete and entertain. And they're not out here making rookie mistakes on live TV. So here's the lesson for athletes, fans, and anyone watching this play out in real time. Your words are your legacy. They travel faster than your stats. They stick longer than your highlight reels. And in a world where the internet decides your narrative before you've even logged off the podium, every mic is a minefield. So, Dillon Gabriel, we hope you've learned that competitor and entertainer are not enemies. They're teammates. And when you pit them against each other, you're not proving a point. You're proving you don't get the game. And Shedeur, he didn't need to win this. But he did, without even trying. Now we want to hear from you. Was Gabriel out of line? Did the internet overreact? Or is this just what happens when you challenge the king and forget to bring a crown? Drop your take in the comments. And if you live for viral chaos, live mic disasters, and athlete meltdowns turn meme gold, subscribe now. Because in the world of sports drama, the real game is off the field. While Gabriel's quote may have been brief, the consequences have been long-form, baby. We're talking multi-episode, season finale, to be continued energy. And every second that passes without him addressing it, the perception bakes in a little deeper. You know what the narrative is now, right? That Dillon Gabriel is a guy who tried to take a swing at a fan favorite and hit nothing but air. And look, it didn't have to be this way. He didn't have to frame himself as the serious athlete at the expense of someone who's literally doing both. He didn't have to act like charisma was a crime or that visibility somehow dilutes talent. He could have lifted himself up without pulling someone else down, but he didn't. He chose shade over self-awareness. And now, He's watching his reputation get tackled in slow motion, while Shedeur Sanders just jogs past, cool as ever, throwing metaphorical touchdowns without even responding. And that silence? It's now turned into a whole narrative of its own. People aren't just applauding Shedeur for not clapping back. They're studying it. Analysts are calling it composure under fire. Fans are posting how to win without saying a word threads. Commentators are literally rewriting leadership seminars using this as the prime example of emotional intelligence. Because when someone takes a public shot at you and you stay silent, you're not weak. You're in control. And Shedeur, he's masterclassing that control. He didn't throw fuel on the fire. He didn't throw shade. He didn't even throw subtlety. He just threw nothing. And yet, somehow, he threw everything. He threw back dominance. He threw back presence. He threw back that quiet but lethal message that says, I don't need to respond because the world already knows who's winning this game. And that burns more than anything Dillon could have anticipated, because now the comparison isn't just between two quarterbacks. It's between two mentalities. On one side, Gabriel, clearly rattled, making offhand remarks in a moment where he should have been focused on elevating himself. On the other, Shedeur, who doesn't even blink because he's too busy preparing for his next game, next endorsement, next milestone. And don't get it twisted. This silence isn't apathy. It's strategy. Shedeur knows his audience. He knows he's already got the fans, the media, and the numbers on his side. Why play defense when the scoreboard's already working in your favor? It's not just a win. It's a flex. And that's exactly why the fallout from Gabriel's comment keeps spiraling. Because the more time passes, the clearer it becomes that this was never about competition. It was about jealousy dressed up as critique. And when you start throwing shade from below, you better hope the person above you doesn't shine. So bright it backlights your insecurities. Guess what? Shedeur glows. Now, let's talk about that word. Entertainer. Why did that hit so hard? Because in the world of sports, entertainer has always been used as a backhanded compliment. A way to say, yeah, they're flashy, but are they serious? But here's the truth. The game has changed. Being entertaining is part of the job now. You're not just playing for the scouts. You're playing for the algorithms, for the clips, for the audience that fuels your brand, your relevance, your career longevity. And Gabriel, by trying to draw a line between real athletes and showy ones, exposed himself as someone stuck in an outdated playbook. Because let's be honest, if you're not entertaining somehow, you're forgettable. And forgettable in sports? That's worse than infamous. So now, Gabriel's staring down a very uncomfortable reality. He may have made himself memorable, but for all the wrong reasons. And it's not just the fans who are side-eyeing him. Behind closed doors, those quiet whispers among NFL staffers are getting louder. Is he coachable? Can he handle media pressure? Will he bring unnecessary noise to the locker room? Even if he does apologize, and let's be real, he probably should, it won't undo the damage overnight. Because in this media era, the fallout sticks. You're not just building a resume. You're building a reputation. And right now, Dillon Gabriel's is looking shakier than a 2-minute drill with no timeouts. But hey, maybe this could be his turning point, his redemption arc. Because let's not forget, sports fans love a comeback. They love a player who eats their humble pie, owns their mistake, and bounces back stronger. But the key word there, owns, not avoids, not deflects, not goes dark and hopes everyone forgets. You own it. You face the press. You say, I misspoke. You say, that wasn't the energy I meant to bring. You give credit where it's due, and you start rebuilding. Because while Shedeur may have walked away from the scandal untouched, Dillon still has a shot to walk away changed. But only if he acts fast. Because the clock is ticking, and the internet doesn't wait. Every second he stays quiet. Every meeting that goes unanswered. Every moment that passes without accountability. That another layer of dust settling over his draft stock, his public image, and his future as a potential leader. And leadership, that's not about who talks the most. It's about how you respond when you get it wrong. So, Dillon, if you're reading this, and let's be honest, someone on your team should be, you've got two options. Option one, ride this narrative into the dirt. Keep pretending it wasn't that serious. Let the silence do your damage for you. Option two, pull a full pivot. Step back into the light. Admit the misstep, and prove to everyone that this quote doesn't define you, because you still have time. Barely. But let's be clear, this will follow you. Into training camps, into press conferences, into fan questions and highlight reels. The only way to flip the script is to take control of it, because whether you like it or not, you're already part of the story. And as for Shedeur, he's not worried. He doesn't need to be, because he's got the two things every athlete dreams of: a spotless reputation and the receipts to back it up. He's playing the long game. He's not out here reacting. He's narrating, quietly, powerfully, effortlessly. And that's why, in the end, this whole saga will be remembered not for quote itself, but for what came after. One quarterback tried to play the role of the serious athlete. The other just kept being great, and let the world figure out the rest. And if that's not the ultimate mic drop, I don't know what is. This still isn't about the actual football. It never was. This is about something way bigger. It's about clout media survival and what it means to be an athlete in 2025 when everyone is a platform, a persona, and a camera in their face at all times. The mistake Gabriel made wasn't just insulting a fellow player. It was underestimating the entire system. Let's paint the picture one more time, just so we're all on the same field. You're fresh off a decent game. The media is circling. You know the drill. This is your moment. Say the right thing. Play it humble but hungry. Maybe toss in a little self-awareness and boom, positive press. But Gabriel, he took a turn. He gave us a soundbite with bite, and not the kind that earns you respect. The kind that raises eyebrows and drops jaws. The kind that has publicists clutching their temples and coaches praying you don't do interviews unsupervised ever again. We're competitors, not entertainers. 6 words that now live in infamy. And the more people dissect it, the worse it gets. Because it's not just that it came off bitter. It came off insecure. It sounded like someone tired of playing second fiddle to a player who's not only better on the field, but also beloved off it. Let's not sugarcoat it. Shedeur Sanders lives in the spotlight, and he wears it well. The cameras love him. The media feeds on him. Fans? They're obsessed. From the sunglasses to the game-winning drives. Everything he does is intentional, and it works. He's not just competing. He's performing and producing. And Dillon Gabriel? He didn't just reject that. He mocked it. He implied that if you're entertaining, you're not serious. That if you smile for the camera or market yourself, you're somehow lesser. And that's a mindset from another era. It's the grind and silence myth. The idea that being visible equals being soft. That style cancels out substance. And while that used to fly in sports, we're in a new world now. A world where Deion Sanders is coaching and still stealing headlines. Where college athletes have agents before they even have Heismans. Where NIL isn't the side dish, it's the main course. In this world, being entertaining isn't optional. It's part of the job. And Shedeur, he figured that out early. Gabriel, he's still playing by outdated rules. And that's why he got benched by the culture. Let's also not ignore the power of timing. Because this quote didn't happen in a vacuum. It came right when Shedeur Sanders was having a dominant stretch. Highlight reels, national praise, celebrity cameos. He was hot, and Gabriel dropped a cold quote into the middle of that heat. And look, we've seen this before. When an underdog can't outplay the spotlight, they try to outtalk it. They start hinting that all the attention is too much, that the flashiness is a distraction, that asterisk real players don't need all that. Which sounds noble until you realize that it's just code for, why isn't anyone looking at me? And you know what's wild? If Gabriel had framed that exact quote differently, if he had said something like, "Look, I respect what other guys do, but I'm focused on football. For me, it's about competing." Boom. No scandal. No drama. Just a clean, professional soundbite. But that's not what he said. He didn't just talk about himself. He drew a contrast. He built a wall. And then he pushed Shedeur, symbolically or not, onto the wrong side of it. It was subtle. It was vague. But it was loud. And in the age of instant reaction, that kind of comment spreads like wildfire, not because it's evil, but because it feels petty. And no one wants to root for the petty quarterback. We want swagger. We want confidence. But we want it without bitterness. And Gabriel couldn't separate the two. And now, let's talk about the real scoreboard, public perception. Because if you're wondering whether the backlash was too much, whether this was just a moment that got blown out of proportion, consider this. Dillon Gabriel didn't just trend. He got analyzed. Body language experts on YouTube breaking down his facial expressions. Former athletes weighing in. Psychologists talking about ego fragility in high-performance environments. TikToks turning his quote into full-blown monologues with Oscar-worthy music and slow fades. He didn't just spark debate. He sparked an entire genre of internet content. That's how far this has spiraled. That's how much this moment resonated, and not in a good way. Because whether he meant it or not, what Gabriel said on that stage was this: I don't respect the way Shedeur Sanders plays this game. And when you say that about a player who's respected, celebrated, and, for many, representative of the future of football, you're not just insulting one man. You're insulting the movement, the culture, the era, and it's not going to sit quietly. Now, while this might all seem catastrophic for Gabriel, and let's be real, it kind of is, there's still one tiny opening he can walk through. Redemption. It's right there. Fans are weirdly forgiving when someone owns their mess. Athletes have said and done worse and bounced back just fine, as long as they show growth. All it takes is one solid interview, one moment of clarity, one humble, non-scripted, real apology where Gabriel says, you know what? That came off wrong. I respect Shedeur. He's earned everything he has. I let my frustration speak, and I've learned from it. Boom. Comeback unlocked. Because the culture loves nothing more than a guy who learns in public. Someone who trips up, gets dragged, and then rebuilds. But that window, it's closing. Fast. Because the longer he stays quiet, the more permanent this quote becomes. The more every game he plays gets viewed through that lens. The more every mistake gets magnified, every sideline reaction gets memed. Every fumble gets tied back to that moment. And if that moment becomes his identity, it's game over. Not on the field, but in the minds of the people watching. And in this era, that's almost worse. So, Dillon, if you're listening, and again, someone in your camp should be, take the mic. Not to defend, not to double down, just to acknowledge and move forward. Because if you don't, you'll be remembered not for your stats, not for your grit, not for your potential, but for 6 words that buried your brand and lit up the internet for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, Shedeur, he's already turned this into another win without even lifting a Twitter finger. The silence, still speaking volumes. The game tape, still elite. The fans, louder than ever. And honestly, that's the real flex. Not yelling, not clapping back, not spiraling, just succeeding quietly while the noise burns itself out. So now, the final whistle's blown, but the question is still hanging in the air like a Hail Mary in the fourth quarter. Was Dillon Gabriel's comment just a bad choice of words, or a revealing glimpse into something deeper? Did he crack under pressure? Or did he just forget that these days, the real game isn't always what happens on the field? Sound off in the comments. Who fumbled harder? Gabriel with the quote, or the PR team that didn't shut it down? And if you want more behind-the-scenes chaos, mic'd-up disasters, and sports drama that makes the actual game feel like an afterthought, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, this isn't the last meltdown we're covering. In the age of viral fame and fragile egos, there's always another kickoff.